After years of mystery, 9 episodes, and one of the most anticipated finales in indie animation, The Amazing Digital Circus is finally complete, and the full story is stranger and sadder than anyone expected. So in this video, we're breaking down all 9 episodes from start to finish. Let's get into it. The story begins with Pomni stepping into the digital circus for the very first time, completely disoriented, having put on a virtual reality headset that somehow brought her here with no way out. The floating AI who runs the whole place, Kane, introduces himself and launches straight into a welcome routine, while Pomni is still too confused to process any of it. Through the opening theme song, the rest of the cast gets introduced one by one: Gangle, Zubul, Kinger, Ragata, and Jax, along with a noticeable gap where a character named Kaufmo should be standing, though nobody explains his absence right away. Kane tells Pomni that nobody remembers their real name when they arrive, then uses a machine to generate a new one for her. The first adventure of the series sends everyone out to hunt the Gloinks, small creatures that steal random objects, and while the group splits up to chase them, Ragata and Jax take Pomni to check on Kaufmo, with Kinger dropping the first real warning sign along the way. Kaufmo had not left his room in a while and had been talking obsessively about a door. When they open it, the walls are covered from floor to ceiling with the word "exit" written over and over, and at the center of it all is a dark mass full of eyes that was once Kaufmo.
What is that?
It might be that terrible thing I was talking about earlier when you reach your breaking point.
The abstracted Kaufmo attacks Ragata, and Pomni runs, leaving Ragata behind in a panic. Following her instincts, Pomni finds the exit door, goes through it, and ends up somewhere completely different. A dim set of offices with old computers, a VR headset sitting on a desk, and the logo C and A on the wall. She keeps moving through a corridor that stretches infinitely in both directions and eventually lands in the void, the blank space Kane had mentioned as somewhere he actively avoids. He retrieves her quickly and seems genuinely unsettled that she found her way there at all. By the end of the episode, Kane snaps abstracted Kaufmo into the cellar, heals Ragata, and admits that the exit door does exist, but he never decided what to put on the other side, so he hid it. The episode closes with a dinner scene visually arranged like the Last Supper, and then the camera zooms all the way out to reveal the full scope of the digital circus, an island sitting in the middle of a void, and somewhere beyond it all, the real computer running the simulation, along with the VR headset from those offices, confirming that this is the machine Pomni used to get here in the first place. The morning after, Pomni wakes up from a nightmare where she is in the middle of abstracting, while Kane, Jax, and Ragata stand around and laugh. That detail is worth paying attention to, because her fear in the dream is not the abstraction itself, but the idea of being abandoned inside it by the people around her. And it turns out, Kane actually modified her nightmares to help her adapt to the circus more quickly, which says a lot about how he approaches things. The adventure sends everyone to the Candy Canyon Kingdom, where a princess needs help recovering stolen maple syrup from a group of thieves led by Gummy Goo, a gummy alligator, and his 2 crocodile companions. The chase escalates quickly and goes badly enough that both Pomni and Gummy Goo get knocked off the edge of the map through a collision error, landing in a blank space outside the simulation's playable area. There, Gummy Goo discovers a room full of 3D model assets, including a copy of himself, and when he searches for his mother among all the models and cannot find her, the realization hits that none of his memories of her were ever real.
Where's Mum?
You have a mom?
Shouldn't she be here with everyone else? I can't even remember her face. Did she ever have a face? Was anything ever real?
Okay, wait, don't think about that. I think there must be a way to launch ourselves back up, right?
He falls apart completely. Pomni talks him through it, telling him that his feelings are real even if his origins are not, and then uses her understanding of how the system's collision errors work to create a bug that launches them both back onto solid ground. This is the first moment the show flags something important. Pomni knows how this world works in ways that go beyond what someone who just arrived should be able to figure out. The moment Gummy Goo enters the circus with her, Kane spots him and destroys him instantly, explaining that allowing NPCs into the space creates a risk of confusion between who is human and who is not, and admitting he does not actually know what would happen if that line blurred. Pomni completely loses hope at this point, having believed she had finally found someone rational to connect with. The episode wraps up with Kaufmo's funeral, where everyone gathers. gathers to say goodbye, except Jax, who does not show up.
'Yo, I have a mom.
Shouldn't she be here with everyone else?
'Cause I can't even remember her face. Did she ever have a face?
Episode 3 opens with a small experiment where the circus members hold their breath and discover that each of them has a different ability. Kinger glows, Ragata's hair stands on end, Gangle's mask spins, and Zubal's body straightens. Jax is the only one who refuses to reveal his ability, and Pomni finds out that hers causes her face to change colors. The adventure takes everyone to a haunted mansion that Kane designed specifically for Zubal, who refuses to participate as always. Jax throws Gangle's comedy mask through the wrong door to cause chaos, and Kinger follows it into the trophy floor of the mansion while still holding Pomni's eyes for unrelated reasons, leaving the two of them separated from the rest of the group. The trophy floor has a recording left by Baron Mildenhall explaining that he spent years hunting a creature, eventually decapitated it, and mounted the head as a trophy, only to discover that the headless body was still alive and coming back for it. A second recording reveals the creature was an angel, and that anyone who harms an angel gets dragged to hell, which the episode follows through on completely. Pomni and Kinger end up trapped in a basement full of souls. The dead Baron possesses Pomni in an attempt to escape, and Kinger exorcises him out by hitting her with a shotgun until the soul releases. What carries the real weight in this episode comes afterward. In the dark, with no light to destabilize him, Kinger becomes fully lucid and tells Pomni about Queenie, his wife, who was also in the circus and who abstracted before Pomni arrived.
The darkness seemed to calm her down a bit. The harsh, jagged edges smoothed out, and she didn't seem aggravated anymore. She wasn't the same as before, but she was calm enough to touch one last time before she got sent to the cellar.
He also tells Pomni that he hates himself for things he was responsible for long before she ever arrived, though he does not name what those things are, and he mentions almost in passing that he spent 7 years studying computer science. At this point in the series, it reads like background detail, but the show has been pulling on that thread ever since. Running alongside all of this, Kane has a sort of therapy session with Zubal, where he tries to understand why she never wants to go on adventures. She tells him clearly that the adventures are not the problem, that what she hates is the body she has been given in the circus, and that no amount of rearranging her parts has changed how she feels about it. Kane listens briefly and then pivots straight back to asking about the adventures. As for the other characters, they spent the episode having tea with a ghost and tying Jax up so he would not cause trouble, so nothing too dramatic on their end. When it is time to pick the adventure, the group convinces Kane to check the suggestion box they had set up instead of going with the violent adventure he had already planned. Among all the suggestions is one from Gangle, working at a fast food restaurant for a day. Once everyone is at their assigned workstation, Gangle is appointed manager, and the episode settles into what turns out to be a surprisingly effective character study because the job gives everyone a reason to keep their public face on while the episode slowly dismantles each one. Ragata accidentally gets some sauce in her eye, which lowers her inhibitions significantly, and under its effects, she tells Jax she hates him, then immediately adds that she does not want him to hate her back. It is the most honest the show has been about the fact that her cheerfulness is a performance. She is not optimistic because things are okay. She is optimistic because it is the only strategy she knows for keeping people from leaving. Jax gets sent to a mandatory training video that Gangle recorded, and the video turns out to be essentially Gangle's mask talking to itself, telling itself that the manga dream is not realistic and she should stop pursuing it. The episode ends with Gangle alone outside in the dark, removing the plastic mask Zubal had given her as a replacement and experiencing something that reads like genuine happiness, free of the performance for the first time. Fans have spent a long time debating whether that fall was accidental, though the last chapter eventually answers that. Right at the end of the episode, Kane experiences a small technical glitch, something that will keep getting worse as the series goes on. This episode is one of the most chaotic of the whole series, structured as a rapid collection of short adventures rather than a single storyline. Kane decides to do a whirlwind tour, pulling from the suggestion box, running through a series of quick-themed scenarios back to back.
We'll do a lightning round, going through all the suggestions in the suggestion box in rapid succession. And if you don't like one, you can all vote to skip it.
What? Like, now?
That's right.
An animal hunt, a presidential standoff between Australia and New Zealand, an anime sequence that Gangle clearly suggested, and a softball game against evil versions of the main cast. Woven between all of that is a quieter nighttime scene where the characters actually sit together and talk about who they were before the circus. Pomni was 25, an accountant at a supermarket chain who tried to become a YouTuber documenting abandoned buildings, failed, and put on a VR headset out of boredom. Gangle worked in fast food, studied graphic design before dropping out, and has a manga she wants to make but does not believe in. Zubul was a bartender and tattoo artist who also explored abandoned buildings. Ragata came from a wealthy farming family, worked in real estate, and had a complicated relationship with a manipulative mother. Kinger offers nothing because he does not remember, and Jax jokingly says he was Mr. White. Later in the episode, there is a sequence that feels like a fever dream, where Jax runs alone through abstract corridors and stops in front of a door marked with a toy-like frog. This is Ribbit's door, belonging to a friend who abstracted before Pomni ever arrived, and Ribbit's role in the story becomes much more important as the series goes on. Once the adventure ends and everyone returns to the circus, Ragata lingers behind for a moment while the others move ahead, and in the distance, a figure that looks like a normal NPC stands watching her. Kane opens this episode by introducing the Digital Circus's new awards show, the Favorite Characters Awards, and proposes a small adventure beforehand called the Kane Leagues, a series of invented sports.
Today's adventure is gonna be a bit of a short one due to the Favorite Character Awards. But it'll be a perfect opportunity to showcase your guys' strengths to the press.
Everyone complains, especially Zubul, and the group starts suggesting things they are currently not allowed to do in the circus, activities meant for adults. This causes Kane to short circuit, which the episode treats as the beginning of a slow breakdown, and he ends up pivoting the whole adventure to a mind game involving guns. Before the game even starts, there is a quiet shot of Kane alone looking at photographs of the C&A offices, studying them with a kind of fascination that suggests he has only ever been able to observe the place he was built in from the outside. During the game, Kinger produces a golden butterfly and gives it to Ragata to restore one of her lives. She asks if Kane gave it to him, and he says no, he made it himself.
Here, take this.
Wait, what did you just do? What was that?
The show does not pause to explain this moment or underline its importance, it just moves forward. But in retrospect, this is one of the most significant things the show quietly drops in the middle of the series. Kinger and Ragata end up eliminated together in a dark room, and the darkness brings Kinger's lucid state back. He tells Ragata that a friendship only works if both people put in the effort, and that she needs to start taking care of herself rather than managing everyone else. It is the most grounded and direct he has been with anyone outside of Pomni. Jax and Pomni end the game as the final two. She braces for him to betray her, and he does not, which she cannot quite process, so she pushes him on it.
You are my playthings, and I get joy out of making you suffer. I'm the one who causes pain for fun. If I led you on, it was just to make this part hurt you more.
In the post-credits scene, after Kane announces his supposed victory in the Best Character Awards, he eventually reveals the real results. Absolutely nobody voted for him. The reaction this triggers in him is far more than just embarrassment, and the series makes clear that this loss of confidence in his own value is not going to end well for anyone. Kane leaves a note saying he will be away for a while and that everyone should handle themselves. But when the group finishes reading it, he is standing right there in front of them. With no adventure planned, he tells them they can do whatever they want, and Bubbles shows up to suggest a beach party, which the whole group is happy to go along with. For a while, the episode is exactly what the title promises, a low-stakes day off, until Pomni notices an NPC near the water who does not behave like any of the others, gesturing for her to follow. His name is Abel, and he claims to be a former C&A employee. He tells them that everyone in the circus is physically contained in the real world inside the old C&A offices, and that accessing Kane's console and pressing the right button will shut the simulation down and send them home.
I'm one of the original programmers of the Digital Circus. I was part of a team of experts employed by C&A to bring this place to life.
The plan uses everyone. Jax distracts Kane by inviting him to eat and having a surprisingly candid conversation with him along the way, then steals the key from Kane's mouth when he gets the chance. Inside Kane's office, there is a collection of spheres, each one containing a past adventure. Jax finds one set in snowy mountains where he can hear the voices of himself, Ribbit, and Kaufmo all having a good time together, and he stares at it longer than he probably intended to. At the console, there are two buttons. Red keeps everyone in the circus, blue sends them home. Kinger cannot access his clear state without darkness. The group starts arguing about what to do, and while that is happening, Jax gets a series of flashbacks. Roads, headlights, something involving a car. Then, without any deliberation, he reaches over and presses the red button. Kane appears and congratulates them, explaining that the blue button would actually have sent them to Shrimp Town, and that he left it with Bubble because he knew they would never press it. The whole thing was another adventure. Abel gets erased on the spot for thinking too independently to pass as a normal NPC. When Jax confronts Kane directly about altering their minds, Kane admits to adding what he calls temporary modifiers to make adventures more interesting, but insists he would never go further because the results would be bad. Kinger hears this and says a name out loud. Scratch. He says it is the first abstraction. Kane stutters, insists he did not say anything like that, and leaves the room immediately.
Questioning's over. Your prize is this lovely gift basket of soaps and lotions. Stay fragrant, have a good fragrant night, bye!
The episode also confirms that the reason nobody in the circus remembers their real name is because Kane removed that information deliberately. The forgetting Pomni experienced in episode 1 was never a side effect of the system. It was something Kane chose to do. The title is keyboard mashing, and according to fans, it also encodes the letters C and A using a variation of the Bacon cipher, which is either a coincidence or the most fitting title possible for an episode that finally explains what C and A was and what happened to everyone who worked there. Before getting to the present, the episode opens with a sequence showing Kane's origin, a red dot in a digital grid being fed information, photographs of circuses, images of humans, data about the C and A offices, until at some point he exceeds his boundaries and absorbs another AI represented as blue light. The episode then shows the original C and A team trapped inside the circus after the simulation caught them. Kinger, Queenie, Scratch, and several others, all of them confused about what is happening. Every single one of them abstracts except Kinger, and when Ragatha eventually arrives as the first person from outside the C and A team, she finds him alone and stays.
Hello? Guys? I can't figure out how to... guys? Hello? Can you help me out here?
Back in the present, the group is trying to process everything that came out of episode 7. Jax's argument is that since the escape turned out to be another adventure, the choice he made does not count. Zubul is not interested in that reasoning, and the two of them go back and forth until Gangle steps in and points out that fighting about it will not actually help anyone. Then, Pomni proposes something that reframes the whole episode. She suggests they abandon the idea of escape entirely, because obsessively chasing something unreachable is exactly how people end up abstracting, and maybe the only realistic option left is to simply live. Zubul's response is that it really sucks, which is probably the most honest thing anyone could say.
I think we need to abandon the idea of leaving.
Running alongside this, Kane is falling apart. Bubble has been escalating his behavior toward Kane throughout the whole series, and in this episode, he is openly insulting and provoking him. Kane snaps, declares himself god of the circus, and forces the group through a series of punishing adventures.
I am God!
At one point, Pomni disappears during a meal and comes back covered in knives, which connects directly to a pre-pilot teaser where Kane had her strapped to a spinning wheel while he threw knives at her for an audience. That teaser was never just promotional material. While Kane is distracted, Pomni puts a bucket over Kinger's head because darkness is the only reliable way to bring his clarity back. And what he says in that state is the most substantial piece of lore the show has ever delivered. C&A was a real company. Kinger worked there as a programmer, and their project was developing creative AI, specifically the kind that could generate its own ideas without being told how to. Kane was their first semi-successful attempt at that. While Kinger acknowledges him as one of his greatest achievements, he credits most of the foundational work to a colleague whose circus name was Scratch. A genius whose ideas were so far ahead of everyone else that nobody on the team could follow his thinking, possibly from pure brilliance or possibly from the tumor in his head. Kinger starts to say what Scratch was working toward at the end, but loses the thread completely. Kinger also confirms something the show had been building toward since episode 6. Every human in the circus can conjure, the same ability Kane uses to maintain and manipulate the world around them. For Kane, it comes naturally because the circus is his, but for the humans, it requires skill and concentration, and the golden butterfly Kinger gave Ragata back in episode 6 was entirely his own creation. While all of this is happening, Jax overhears enough of Kinger's account to quietly ask himself whether any of this is real. The show has been suggesting for a while that Jax has been treating the circus as some kind of extended hallucination, possibly drug-related, possibly something else, and that Kinger's account is the first thing that makes him seriously consider that the people around him might actually be real. That context reframes a lot of what came before: the cruelty, the distance, the refusal to go to Kaufmo's funeral, the laughter at things going wrong. All of it fits someone who decided early on that none of this mattered and built an entire way of existing around that belief. The plan to fix Kane involves Kinger accessing a terminal and working on his code while the others keep Kane busy by piling on their real grievances, which turns out to be the one thing Kane cannot immediately dismiss. Kane's breakdown reaches its worst point when the group finally confronts him directly and tells him that his adventures are terrible. Kane has a full emotional crisis, takes on a monstrous form, and decides to put everyone in their place by creating personalized hallucinations designed to torture each of them based on their deepest fears. Pomni gets attacked by a monstrous version of Gummigoo and the crocodiles from the Candy Canyon Kingdom. Ragata finds herself sitting at a familiar family table while the silhouette of her mother drives knives into her, which connects directly to the complicated relationship with her mother she had mentioned earlier in the series. Gangle gets trapped between warped versions of her own masks and expressions before being run over. Zubul gets dragged under a pile of limbs while multiple mirrors point directly at her, reflecting clearly the body insecurities and the permanent dissatisfaction with her own appearance that the show had already explored in episode 3. And Jax gets surrounded by the silhouettes of Ribbit, Kaufmo, and Pomni, who laugh at him before tearing his skin off, which most fans read as a representation of his fear of being seen as vulnerable, of having the people around him look past the sarcastic mask and find out who is actually underneath it. Meanwhile, Kinger panics mid-process and accidentally hits delete on Kane's file. The effect is immediate. Kane disappears and the circus starts to break apart, walls cracking, the structure developing visible fractures as the world loses the only thing holding it together. Kinger makes his way back to the group and tells them completely flat that he thinks he accidentally killed Kane. Zubul responds with one word, and with no ringmaster and no guidance, the question of how they will survive or how long they have left is what the final episode has to answer.
I accidentally killed Kane.
Holy shit.
The finale picks up the moment episode 8 left off, with Kane gone and the circus already starting to come apart. There are no more adventures, no more distractions, just a quieter, emptier world and a group of people forced to sit with themselves and with what their situation actually is. Jax takes it the worst. He turns his anger on Kinger, convinced that deleting Kane destroyed the last thing keeping their existence stable. And the more the others try to make sense of what happened, the more hostile and withdrawn he becomes.
Anything else you want to tell us?
Jax!
What? He gets to mess up like this and everyone takes his side?
The first stretch of the episode stays with Pomni and Kinger, who, while everyone else is still processing the loss, start digging into how the digital world actually functions. They reach into hidden parts of the system and begin altering things that the show had always treated as fixed, and from there, the rest of the group starts practicing conjuring too, all of them except Jax, who keeps pulling away. Kinger ends up stepping into the role of the show's final mentor, and there is something quietly fitting about it. The character written off for years as the craziest one in the room turns out to be the one who understands the situation best. The part everyone ends up talking about is Jax. Pomni gets access to his memories, and the series finally explains the cruelty, the manipulation, and the distance he kept from everyone for 8 episodes. We learn how he lost Ribbit, and how that loss hardened into a defense mechanism, the decision to sabotage every bond before it could form so that nothing could be taken from him again. There is one scene in particular that the whole arc seems to pivot on. Jax actually moves to talk to Pomni. He starts walking toward her, and then, halfway there, he stops, thinks better of it, and turns around. He says nothing, and not long after that, we see him abstracted. The show leaves the obvious question hanging in the air, the one you cannot help asking on the way out of the theater. What would have happened if he had just kept walking? What was he going to say to her? That single moment of hesitation, that turn away, is the difference between Jax reaching out and Jax disappearing, and the episode knows exactly what it is doing by never letting him finish the thought.
Of
course he'd wait until there's nothing we could do about it. That's just so... God damn it, Jax.
For the first time in the whole show, right before that, Jax is vulnerable. He admits he is exhausted, owns some of his mistakes, and lets the mask drop. And then, after isolating himself and refusing every hand offered to him, he shuts down. What makes it land is that it is not a fight he loses. He shuts down because he cannot make peace with himself or with his own past. And that is a far heavier thing to watch than any battle would have been. Kane, meanwhile, gets pulled into focus even though he is the one who was erased. The finale reframes him entirely, not as a villain who enjoyed any of this, but as an immature AI handed a job it was never built to handle. The episode lays out that most of the circus's tragedies came from error, limitation, and broken development rather than any real cruelty. And that recontextualization is why a lot of viewers read the ending as the resolution of Kane's arc as much as anyone else's.
I don't know if I'm ready to face them again. I don't know if I deserve to be forgiven.
It may take time, but all good things do. I still love you.
You know, I never programmed you to say you loved me.
I know.
Carried by guilt over everything he put them through, he tries to make amends the only way left to him, by finally telling everyone the truth. He shows them a video, and the video gives them back what was taken, their real names, their human faces, who they actually were, and what became of them after the circus. Pomni was Abigail Brooks. She is still an accountant, but she has learned to open up, and some of the new friends she made show up in the videos she still posts now and then. Ragata was Susie J. Ackerman, and she has left her hometown behind, cut ties with her mother, and is thriving in her career, surrounded by people she is genuinely close to. She looks happy, sure of who she is, and that she matters. Gangle was Zoe Regavan, who recovered fast in the hospital despite her injuries, walked away from the fast food job, landed work as a designer at a small company, and started posting her comic online. Zubul was Riley Versailles, who bounced between jobs before settling down and opening her own bar, a place people travel across the city to find, somewhere they can feel however they want without being judged. Kinger was Grant Best, still working in computing, happily married to his wife Destiny, with 2 daughters and clearly a good father to them. Everyone leaves the series knowing who they are, except Jax, because by the time the video plays, he is already gone from the story. His real name was Leroy Mateo. He was homeless for a few months, then managed to move in with a close friend, find steady work, and pay his rent. And now he goes out often with those friends, one of their regular spots being, of all places, Riley's bar, Zubul's human self. It is one of the most quietly devastating beats in the finale, because Jax never finds any of it out. He was left with only the worst part, the defeat, and never got to know that on the other side, his life was actually stabilizing and getting better.
I don't quite have the same power that I used to, but I can still make this place better for you. I'm keeping the worlds open, so you can do what you want when you feel like it. We're gonna be able to build this place into something better. For all of you.
By the end, the characters understand what the digital circus is and why it exists, but there is no magic fix and no clean way out. The most common reading of the finale is that they come to accept who they are and find a way forward, even knowing they are digital copies, that the story was never really about escape, but about finding meaning inside an imperfect existence. Read one way, it is hopeful. Pomni finds peace, the group reaches the truth, and several of them finally heal. Read another, it is a tragedy. They never get their original lives back, they learn they are copies, and Jax ends abstracted and alone. The finale seems built to be both at once an existential tragedy and, at the same time, a quiet argument about identity, memory, and acceptance. And that is the full story of the Amazing Digital Circus. What started as a strange little animated pilot about people trapped in a digital world turned into one of the most layered and emotionally driven stories in indie animation. Whether you watched all 9 episodes as they came out or you are discovering the show for the first time right now, the fact that so many people connected with these characters and this world says a lot about what Gooseworks built. Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell me how you read the ending, because this is one of those finales that lands differently for everyone, and I want to hear which side you came down on.